chance of enrolling. They have a higher chance of enrolling in college when a student fills out the FAFSA because it puts the idea of college into their head. They already have a head start because a college will already have their financial aid information, and it all around just provides success for our students here in the state. When you do the FAFSA, it determines your eligibility for federal and state financial aid, and it's really great to take advantage of filling out the FAFSA. High schools all over the state are going to have support from HESA when it comes to this year. So super, super important that all parents are aware of this new requirement that we have. And it's not really difficult. I think the FAFSA is not too difficult. Some of the changes they've made have made it way easier to fill out the FAFSA. And I'll talk a little bit more of what that process is like later on in the presentation. So what is financial aid? Financial aid is free money, hopefully, that we are getting to help our children go to college. Every single college, university, community college, anything has a financial aid office. And when you're working with the financial aid office, it is their goal to assist students by evaluating the family's ability to pay for educational costs. So they receive your financial information from the FAFSA. They'll let you know what you're eligible for. They give you the financial aid. It automatically applies to the student's account usually. And they'll help you understand the different kinds of aid. So if you're a parent of a senior and you have questions about financial aid, or there's a specific school that the student is interested in, always know that that school has an office of financial aid. They have counselors that are there for you that are able to answer any questions that can help you understand some different scholarships that they may offer to students. So offices of financial aid, really good to have a good relationship with them because they are going to be very, very helpful in the next few years when a student plans on going to college. Now we have the different kinds of financial aid because there are many. First, I'm going to talk about the sources of financial aid. So where can we get this help for children to go to college? First, we have aid that comes directly from the college or university, school-funded financial aid. Every single school is different. Every single school has scholarships that they are able to offer students. Your big Ivy League schools like Harvard, Yale, they have scholarships that they give to students. Your local community college also has scholarships that they can give to students. This is known as institutional aid, merit-based aid, and again, this is awarded to the student based on different kinds of things. Sometimes it is based on academics. Sometimes it is based on athletic ability. So if a student does a sport, they may be able to get an athletic scholarship from the school that they're interested in. SAT scores, ACT scores, the courses that they took in high school, all these things that they have done throughout their time in high school will impact if a school wants to give them a scholarship. And again, every single school is different. You can have a student who is valedictorian, did every club you can name, has a wonderful resume, and maybe because of the things that they did, they get a really great scholarship from a school. Maybe that same student at another school that they applied to, again, same student, same everything that they've done, maybe that one school doesn't give them a scholarship. Again, every single school is different. So as you're applying, it's important to understand that. We want to make sure we're getting scholarships from the school because that can provide a really great amount of help. But don't be disappointed if a school does not give you an institutional or merit-based scholarship because it just depends. There's a lot of students that are applying to these colleges. Sometimes some schools have more funds than others, so they're able to give out more scholarships. It really just depends on the school that you're applying to. So while that is a really great form of financial aid, institutional merit-based aid, it's not as common for a lot of students. If you are working with a student who maybe doesn't have the best grades, maybe wasn't as involved in high school, they may not get an institutional scholarship. But that's completely fine because this is not the main source of financial aid that a lot of students utilize. A lot of students in the United States utilize federal financial aid. Federal financial aid is financial aid that any U.S. citizen or resident can receive by going to any college in the United States. The federal government gives millions of dollars each year for students to go to college, wherever. If they want to stay in state, if they want to go out of state, they want to leave New Jersey. I'm assuming everyone here is from New Jersey. If everyone is from New Jersey, here you can get federal financial aid, but if you leave New Jersey, you can also get federal financial aid. It follows you anywhere because you are a US citizen or resident. So federal is very, very common, very, very used, and a lot more common now because of the changes that they have made to FAFSA. They have increased eligibility. So for families that maybe weren't eligible for federal aid before, they are eligible now. So very, very common. Again, if you don't get a scholarship from a school, it's okay because you'll probably be receiving federal financial aid, which is awesome. Again, anywhere you choose to go, you're probably going to be offered the federal Pell Grant or student loans as well. On top of federal financial aid, we have another source of financial aid that comes directly from the state of New Jersey. So like I mentioned, I work with HESA, and HESA oversees all state programs. So when a student decides to go to college here in New Jersey, they can usually utilize state financial aid, federal financial aid, and if they have a scholarship from the school, institutional aid all at the same time. So I think it's really great to stay in New Jersey because a lot of students save a lot of money when they're receiving all these types of sources of financial aid at the same time. But again, every student is different. It doesn't look the same for everyone. Maybe a student is not eligible for state aid, but maybe it's completely fine because maybe they have a full ride from the school. So they don't even need the state financial aid. Maybe a student is going out of state, so they lose out on state financial aid because it doesn't follow you when you leave New Jersey. But maybe again, it's fine because they have federal financial aid and they have scholarships from the school. One time I was working with the student and he was showing me his financial aid packages and he was asking me, like, what do you think is the best option for me if I want to save money? Which school is going to give me the most amount of money? And in my head, I was like, well, he's lower income. He's probably going to be getting a lot of federal and state financial aid. Probably better to stay in New Jersey. I'm assuming he should go to a New Jersey school. But when I looked at his financial aid packages, he got a lot better offers from out of state than in New Jersey. Because he was a really great student, he had a lot of full rides from colleges. He had presidential scholarships. That's usually the best kind of scholarship you can get from a school, a presidential. And so I ended up telling him, actually, you can go out of state and it would be cheaper than if you were to stay in New Jersey. So that does happen sometimes. When it comes to the student, their application, what they're eligible for, it's always going to look different. So I can say you can stay in New Jersey and it could be affordable. But again, depending on the student that you're working with, maybe it could be better to go out of state. Just depends. Those are usually the three most common sources of aid from the school, federal, and state aid. But we also have private scholarships, which are always a really great option to look into. When you think of big companies like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, they probably have scholarships that they are giving out to students. A lot of big organizations, corporations give out private scholarships to students. And it is up to students to do the research and find these opportunities. Because if you're applying for a private scholarship, you can, of course, use that in addition to all the other kinds of aid you're getting. There is never going to be a limit to how many private scholarships you can get. A student can apply, 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 and that will only help them if they are getting these scholarships. They can apply it to their bills. They can use it to get their books. So I highly recommend always looking for alternatives, always looking for private scholarships, because that will only help you. The sources of these scholarships, there's many from your local organizations, parents' local Rotary Club, maybe your employer has a scholarship for students, maybe your local church has scholarship for students, maybe the high school gives out scholarships to students. These are everywhere. So it's up to you to do the research, to ask, see what's available. And when I say there's a lot, there's a lot. Like I have a coworker, I use Coca-Cola as an example because her sister randomly found a Coca-Cola scholarship one day. It was like, hey, take a selfie with a Coca-Cola can and we'll give you $500. And she did it and they gave her $500 and that helped her pay for her book. So again, really random, but could be very, very common. So you definitely always want to do research on private scholarships as well. Those are the sources of financial aid. And now we're going to try to understand a little bit more the types of financial aid. So the important terms to understand when a student is getting this financial aid, free help, free money. Grants and scholarships, those are great, amazing things that we want. Grants and scholarships, that's free money that is awarded to the student based on several different things. Scholarships are usually awarded to students based on merit, based on the things that they've done. So you have a scholarship for academics, you have a scholarship for your athletics. Scholarships are usually just given to a student based on something prior. Grants are usually awarded to students based on eligibility. So if a student is low income, usually they get a grant to go to college. So either way, these two are pretty interchangeable. They're awarded for a reason, but it's free money that you do not have to pay back in the future. We want as many grants and scholarships as possible so we can offset the cost of the loan that students may or may not have to take out. The more grants and scholarships you get, maybe you won't have to ever take out a loan. Maybe you won't ever touch it. You won't ever have to deal with it if we're getting a lot of grants and scholarships. That's what we want. Grants and scholarships can be very, very common. Again, the federal government, the state gives out these things to students. Schools give out grants and scholarships to students. But another common resource that a lot of students can use when they want to go to college is taking out loans. That is another type of financial aid that students can utilize when they decide to go to college. And with loans, this is not as amazing as grants and scholarships because loans, those are things that you have to pay back in the future, almost always with interest. The less grants and scholarships that you have, the more you're most likely going to have to take out in loans. So again, that's why we're always going to want to look for these opportunities because if you don't, if you're not getting scholarships, if you're not getting grants, if you go out of state and it's a really expensive school and they don't have a scholarship, then most likely you will need a loan to pay for the cost of education. Loans depends on the family. Again, depends if you need to take it out. I work with a lot of New Jersey students, and they usually don't have to take out loans when they're not living on campus and when they are commuting and going to a state school. But again, depends. We also have other kinds of financial aid, so school-sponsored student employment. So sometimes a student can work on campus, and the money that they get can be used to pay for their tuition. Sometimes it can also just be a job for them that they have on campus, and they can choose what they want to do with that money. But that's another really great option that the federal government oversees for students. It's called federal work study. And of course, savings. So if you have a savings account set up for your student, awesome, you can utilize that. But I know not everyone may have a savings account, so that is an option that may or may not be available to you all. Another great resource to utilize if you are doing research and trying to compare the cost of college is a net price calculator. Every single institution in the US is going to have a net price calculator on their website. This is a law that schools have to provide for students in order for families to get an estimate of how much it is going to cost to go to that college. So if you really want to compare and see, you can go on their website, look up the net price calculator, and you'll be able to estimate what it's going to cost to go to that school. And it is usually based on full-time first degree seeking students. So if it's your first time ever getting a degree, this is what the price is going to be based out of. Usually, believe it or not, it is more expensive to be a part-time student than to be a full-time student. Because when you're part-time, they're charging you by credit. When you're full-time, it's a base price. So the price that they're giving you almost based on full-time status. Almost always based on full-time status. So now for the specific types of aid that you can get, because I'm mentioning all this free money, making it seem really great, but how much are we actually talking? How much can we actually get when a student decides to go to college? First, I'm going to go over federal financial aid. So these are the programs, the biggest programs that the federal government has for students to receive aid when they decide to go to college. First, we have the Pell Grant. With the Pell Grant, that is a maximum of $7,395 per year. And with the Pell Grant, amount depends. It does vary. You can get the maximum amount. You can get the minimum amount, which is like $750, or you can get something in between. It depends on the family's finances. But the Pell Grant is the largest program that the government gives out to students to go to college throughout the country. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot more families are eligible now compared to in the past. They change a lot of the calculations and the math when it comes to awarding students. So Pell Grant is more common now than ever before. You will most likely, hopefully, take advantage of the Pell Grant program when a student decides to go to college. Another big program that they have for students is the SEOG, the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. This one, not as common as a Pell because it is based on income. So if you are working with a lower income family, lower income families are usually eligible for the SEOG. Again, the maximum is $4,000, but it could be less depending on the school or on the family. But if you know your lower income, that could be something to look into, to ask a financial aid office about because you're probably eligible for this. The last program that we have is the Teach Grant. With this one, not as common at all compared to the other two, but can be a really great resource for students if they're eligible. With the Teach Grant, that is up to $3,772 per year, but is very specifically only if you want to be a teacher. When a student takes out the Teach Grant, they're agreeing that in the future, when they graduate, they're going to teach in a high need area for at least 4 or 5 years. And then after those 4 or 5 years, they will never have to worry about it. It's free money that they do not have to pay back. It is a conditional loan. So if you end up changing your mind and you say, hey, don't want to be a teacher anymore, not going to meet that requirement, you have to pay that back in the future. So this one is not at all common. A lot of students who are not sure about what they want to do in the future, if they don't want to be teachers, should not take it out. But if you are sure, it's a really great opportunity. My sister, for example, she is taking advantage of the Teach Grant. She wants to be a teacher. She knows she's going to teach in a high need area when she graduates. So she doesn't have to worry about it. She's for sure about it. She knows she's going to do it. She's actually like waiting for them to apply the Teach Grant to her account right now. So again, really great additional financial aid that you can get if you're eligible. If you're not sure, it's not for you. But these are the largest programs, like I mentioned, that the federal government offers to students. So these are transferable to any single school in the US, whether it's public four-year, private four-year, even your community colleges, you can utilize this financial aid.
Jessica, just a quick question. All of those can be combined if you happen to be eligible for all three at the same time?
Yes, you can use all at the same time. So my sister, for example, she gets the Pell Grant and the Teach Grant. If she was eligible for the SEOG, that would also be applied to her account. There is no limit. It just depends on eligibility. So if you're eligible for them, you can receive them. If you're not eligible, then it just won't be applied to you. So now we have state financial aid. All of what I just mentioned is federal. Now we have state. So this is specific to New Jersey and only if a student decides to go to college in New Jersey. Is there a separate application for the Pell Grant? There is not. It is automatic based on the FAFSA. So when a student completes the FAFSA, the school receives that information, they assess the family's financial need, and then they'll let you know if you're eligible. Here we have state financial aid. So again, the state has a lot of opportunity for our students here in New Jersey. The two biggest programs that we have, well, one of the biggest is the full-time tag grant. That is, again, grant-free money of up to $14,000 per year at state schools, well, any school in New Jersey. So if they want to go to community college, a public four-year school, a private four-year school, they can take advantage of full-time tag. Again, the amount varies. The maximum is 14, but it could be lower depending on where they choose to go. But this goes towards tuition in New Jersey. So really, really awesome, really common. A lot of students benefit from the full-time tag. It's kind of like New Jersey's version of the Pell Grant. And that's again for full-time status. So if you are going full-time to any school in New Jersey, again, private schools too, like Seton Hall, you're eligible, you can receive full-time tag. But say a student maybe wants to go part-time. Maybe they aren't sure yet what they want to study. Maybe they're working while they're in school, so they're not sure if they want to dedicate the full-time status to their education. They can go part-time. If you go to a community college, you can be a part-time student and still receive the tag grant. The amount is lower, it's up to $1,000 per year. But again, that can help you offset the cost of tuition if you want to just take a few classes and see if you're fully interested. And then later on, if you want to become a full-time student, you can do that and benefit from full-time tag. We have lots of other programs that I'm going to continue talking about in the next few slides. What do we need to do to be eligible for state financial aid? You must file a FAFSA or New Jersey alternative application. So FAFSA, again, if you're a citizen, if you're a resident, you can do FAFSA. Or if you are an undocumented student with at least 3 years in New Jersey high school, you can apply for New Jersey's version of the FAFSA, New Jersey alternative application, and you can still benefit from our state program. So it's one or the other, but it needs to be filed for you to be eligible. Again, U.S. citizen, eligible non-citizen, or NJ Dreamer. You must be a New Jersey resident and attend a New Jersey school to benefit from our state programs. And of course, demonstrating financial need, meeting the deadlines. That's how we will determine if you're eligible. Some more of the programs that we have in New Jersey, we have the EOF program. It is up to $3,000 per year for students. It's additional financial aid, but it's also a support program that students can take advantage of when they're in college. With the EOF program, this is a support program, so they have counselors who stay with them throughout their time in college, but they can also start college the summer before. So if you plan on starting in the fall of next year, you would start taking classes throughout the summer, and you get a head start on college. And this is specifically for students who come from educational and economically disadvantaged backgrounds. So if you come from that background, you can be a part of the program, take classes, get a head start, get to know the campus, get to meet students before college officially starts in the fall. And it's really, really wonderful to take advantage of. I did EOF when I was in college, and having that support throughout my time there was amazing, super, super helpful. So, EOF is definitely something that students may want to look into as they are applying to schools. Every school has like a different kind of application process. Sometimes you're automatically admitted, sometimes it requires a different application. So, that's something to be aware of if you think it may apply to you. Governor's Urban Scholarship. This depends on the city that a student is living in. So if you live in any one of these 31 cities and the student is in the top 5% of their class, they are eligible for $1,000 in their first year of college because they live in a area with high need. So again, depending on where you live, really, really good grades pays off. So top 5% of your class, not even top 5%, you can take advantage of that scholarship. Another program that we have where academics matter. Most of our programs, we don't look into academics, it's just financial need. But with these programs, again, depending on your status in high school, that could mean additional financial aid. With NJ Stars, it is specifically for students who rank in the top 15% of their class by the end of their junior or senior year of high school. So if a student had really good grades by the end of junior, senior year, they are eligible for NJ Stars, which means that they can go to community college completely free. They will not have to pay for their tuition in community college because they had good grades in high school. With NJ Stars 2, the program continues after community college. So if a student was an NJ Star student and they're continuing on to get their bachelor's, it turns into a scholarship of $2,500 per year to go to that 4-year school in New Jersey. So again, really does pay off if you have a student who had good grades in high school. They can start off in community college, take advantage of this program, save a lot of money, and then transfer later on to get their bachelor's degree. Here we have the Governance Industry Vocation Scholarship for women and minorities. This is a very specific program for women or minorities. If you're a minority and a man, you're still eligible. If you want to go into construction, so if you want to receive some sort of certificate in construction technology, like one of the programs below, you can get a scholarship of $2,000 per year. And now for my favorite program of all the programs that we have, because it is super, super easy to understand, is the New Jersey College Promise. This is one of the more recent programs that HESA has, and it is the most common because, again, super easy to understand, and a lot of students are eligible for it. With the New Jersey College Promise, it is a two-part program. So first, we have the Community College Opportunity Grant, and then we have the Garden State Guarantee. First, I'll discuss the Community College Opportunity Grant. Again, this is my favorite program because it is super easy to understand. If a family makes under $65,000 per year, automatically they will go to community college completely free. You will not have to pay for anything at all because the family makes under that amount. If a family makes a little bit more, there are certain discounts you can get. So $65,000 to $80,000 per year, you will have half off on tuition at community college. And if you make $80,001 to $100,000 per year, you will pay 1/3 of the price to go to community college. So you get a discount kind of every step of the way. But this is a really, really great program, very common program that a lot of students who go to community college take advantage of. And with this program, you can also go part-time and take advantage of this. So again, if a student is not sure yet, but they want to enroll, take part-time classes, as long as it's a minimum of 6 credits per semester, they can take advantage and they can go for free. Students must make satisfactory academic progress. This means they have to have decent grades. They don't have to be amazing grades. Every school has a different GPA requirement, but as long as they're like passing their classes, they're going to be okay and they're going to be eligible for the program. After the Community College Opportunity Grant, or CCOG, we have Garden State Guarantee, also known as GSG. We have a lot of acronyms in the financial aid world. With GSG, it is basically the same thing, but for your last 2 years of college. So say a student went to Community College Opportunity Grant, went to the community college and they took advantage of CCOG. When they transfer over to a 4-year school, in their third and fourth year with this program, it will also be free to finish up your last 2 years to get your bachelor's degree. This is at all of our public 4-year schools in New Jersey. So schools like Rutgers, Ramapo, Montclair, William Patterson. There's a lot more, but I can't think of them right now. All the public schools in New Jersey, NJIT, just thought of one. They are eligible for a Guardian State Guarantee. Again, depending on how much you make, 0 to 65,000 free, $65,001 to 80,000. You will never pay more than $7,500 a year in tuition and fees. Then $80,001 to $100,000. You will never pay more than $10,000 in tuition and fees. This is again for your third and fourth year at a 4-year school. But this does not have to be exclusively if you just went to community college. If a student is already enrolled in a 4-year school, they can also take advantage of GSG. My sister, for example, another state school, she goes to the College of New Jersey. This year, she just now started her junior year. So now, her junior year, this year and next year, she is not paying for tuition because she is covered under this program. Last year, when she was a sophomore, she wasn't eligible just yet. She did get other forms of financial aid, but now her last 2 years, good to go, does not have to pay for tuition. So this helps a lot regardless of how you started college. We also have 3+1 degree completion programs. So say a student is enrolled in community college and the community college has a 3+1 program. With the 3+1, this means that a student stays at community college for 3 years. They enroll in a 4-year school for 1 year only, paying the price of a 4-year school for their last year only. And by the end of those 4 years, they get a bachelor's degree, but they have significantly paid a lower price to obtain that bachelor's degree because they stayed at the community college for 3 years. And the way it works in a student's third year at community college, they take classes at the 4-year college level with professors from that college, and they're basically getting that college experience while staying on their community college campus. One program that I know of, for example, is in my home county, Passaic County Community College. They have this with Ramapo College, so they work closely with Ramapo professors who teach courses at PCC for students in the 3+1 program. So really great way to save some money when a student goes to college. That is it for our free financial aid opportunities for students. Again, a lot to take advantage of, whether student stays in New Jersey or if they choose to go out of state. Really, really great opportunity for students. But again, sometimes there is a balance. Maybe you are getting a lot of federal financial aid, you're getting state financial aid, but maybe a student is living on campus, and living on campus sometimes is not covered by financial aid. Maybe the student is adamant on living on campus, they're super excited about it, but maybe they don't have any scholarships from the school, and it costs a lot of money to pay for that. You have two options. If you have a large balance, you can go on a monthly payment plan. You can pay per month, whatever it takes in order to pay off what it costs to go to that school. Maybe you owe $1,000 to the school for the semester and you break it up and you pay $250 for 4 months. And that can help pay off the cost of living on campus. But if that is too much for you, if you cannot make those payments, then you may need to consider taking out a student loan. Student loans should always be a last resort, only when there is no other option. If you can't afford the monthly payments, you might want to do the student loan. And so with the student loans, again, you have the option. There are two that they will usually offer students when they are in college. With the federal direct loan program, again, this is run by the federal government. When you do the FAFSA, they'll let you know if you're eligible for the loans. And there are two. There is a subsidized loan and the unsubsidized loan. If a student is offered the subsidized loan, this is a better option. With the subsidized loan, you do not have to pay back the interest until 6 months after a student graduates. So here, the student is being offered $3,500. If you take out that loan in the student's first year and you pay off the interest before the student graduates, interest will never grow on the loan. You'll be good to go. You'll never have to worry about it because you paid it back in time. This is different from the unsubsidized loan. With the unsubsidized loan, interest will grow from the moment the student starts classes. So with the $2,000, if they're taking it out their freshman year, the interest is going to grow until you choose to pay that off. So again, subsidized is way better than unsubsidized. You have a lot more time to pay it back without worrying about the interest. Unsubsidized is a regular loan, and it's the more common one that is offered to families. So again, you have that option. Sometimes you may get offered one and not the other, but that's the way the federal direct loan program operates. This year, the loans have a 6.5% interest rate plus an additional 1% origination fee that they tack on for like processing. And so that's how we have it this year. May change next year, could go up, could go down, depends. But that's how currently the federal loans operate. Sometimes a student chooses to go to a really expensive school. Maybe they take out that maximum amount of loans. Again, unsubsidized 2,000, subsidized 3,500. They're taking out a total of $5,500 in loans, and maybe they still have a balance. Maybe it's super expensive to live at that school, and they need to find another loan to help them pay that off. In that case, you do have options. You can take out additional loans to help you pay for the cost of college. Do I recommend it? No, not entirely, but sometimes it's necessary, especially if you're going to a really, really good school. Maybe it's worth it to take out the loan. You have the NJ class and the Federal Parent Plus as an option. NJ class looks really nice and pretty because HISA oversees that loan. So, of course, we encourage students to take it out. With the NJ class loan, it does have lower interest rates compared to the Federal Parent Plus. Interest rate depends on the repayment plan that you choose. But the Federal Parent Plus, the way that operates, the parent is the borrower on the loan for the student for them to go to college. They run your credit, make sure you're good to go, and then they apply the loan to the student's account. NJ class student or the parent can be the borrower on the loan, or you could be a cosigner. So you have that option. So when students are taking out additional loans to help them pay for school, we recommend either of these two because they are government loans. They are very, very heavily regulated. You have a lot of repayment options. Whereas if you take out a loan, a private loan from a bank, a company like Sallie Mae or from Wells Fargo, they usually are going to charge you higher interest rates and they have less repayment options. So that's why we have these two here. We recommend these loans as opposed to private bank loans. But again, up to you. If you can get a really good deal, you can go for it. But we highly recommend these. All right, so before I go into applications and types of ways to apply for financial aid, I'm going to take a little break. I want to see if there's any questions that I can answer right now before we get into the application section. I see a question in the chat. NJ class loans, do you need to go to college in New Jersey? No, you do not have to go to college in New Jersey. So this is one of the very few programs that we have for students where they can use this out of state. So I'll go back to it, NJ class. If a student goes out of state in New Jersey, but they're from New Jersey, graduated from a New Jersey high school, they can use NJ class out of state. Again, one of the only programs we have where a student can use an NJ financial aid program out of state. We recommend NJ class when a student is going out of state because, again, lower interest rates. You can do that. Are the interest rates on NJ class fixed? Yes, they are. So they stay that way throughout the time that you are repaying the loan. When you're taking out a loan, really important to consider fixed rates when it comes to loans. That's why, again, we don't recommend bank loans as often because sometimes those are not fixed. They can change it at any moment. It's not very secure. So again, these, because they're New Jersey loans, because it's a federal Parent Plus loan run by FAFSA, those are very, very heavily regulated. You can choose your repayment options. With other ones, they're going to tell you, hey, US $800 a month, no way out of it. And because you agreed to that, there's no way to negotiate it. So again, this is why we recommend these as opposed to private loans. Any other questions so far? All right, sounds good. Now, how can we apply for this financial aid? Because we understand how much we can get, types of aid, but now we're ready. What do we want to do? What can we do right now to help us get a head start to get all this awesome financial aid? First of all, we have the FAFSA, which is available on studentaid.gov. This is going to come out by December 1st of this year. Traditionally, FAFSA comes out October 1st every single year. Last year was the first year where they pushed it back. Last year it came out December 31st, way later, but basically came out January 1st last year. This year they're hoping it comes out by December 1st. And again, this is because FAFSA looks completely different from how it used to be. It looks different. Financial aid is calculated differently. And so they are still working out the kinks so that they are ready by December 1st of this year. Some students are able to get a head start and fill it out earlier. So if you have a student and they're like, oh, like I'm able to do it right now and it's kind of confusing, they can. Some students can do it earlier, but it will be available nationwide after December 1st. FAFSA is the most important financial aid application, again, regardless of where you want to go to school, but there are other ones that you can utilize, such as the CSS profile. That one will be available on October 1st, so in the next few days. Depends on which school that you're going to or applying to, but CSS profile is another sort of financial aid application that you can fill out. And then we have the HESA application, so alternative financial aid application for Dreamers. If a student is undocumented, they can fill out that application beginning October 1st as well to be eligible for state financial aid. So you have options. I'll explain first the CSS profile. With CSS profile, again, it depends on what schools the student is applying to. There are about 400 schools in the US that require them to fill out the CSS profile. With the CSS profile, it's basically the same as a FAFSA. It's a financial aid application, but schools utilize this to see if students are eligible for institutional aid. So that's why it's super important to fill it out. If you want to get a scholarship from the school and they suggest you do it, you're going to want to fill out the CSS profile. In New Jersey, there's only one school that requires a CSS profile, Stevens Institute of Technology. If a student doesn't want to go to Stevens, they don't have to worry about it if they want to stay in New Jersey. But for a student that is maybe applying to a lot of out-of-state schools, a lot of private schools, maybe Ivy Leagues, they probably will need to fill out the CSS profile, and they're going to want to look at the list of schools to see if it's necessary. Again, this will be available on time on October 1st. And the way these financial aid applications work with CSS profile and the FAFSA, they are always going to ask for prior year income. So if a student is graduating 2025, they're starting school in the year 2025, 26, they will be asking for 2023 tax information. And that's how it is every single year going forward. It's always 2 years back. So you're going to want to have your 2023 tax information ready by the time that all of this comes out. With this application, it is not free. It costs $25 for the first application and $16 for every school after that. But if the family makes under $100,000 per year, they can get a fee waiver and they don't have to pay for it. So again, it depends, but CSS profile may or may not be something to think about in the next week because it comes out very, very soon. The CSS profile is run by College Board. So for students that have taken AP exams, SAT exams, if they already have an account on College Board, they can usually utilize that same account to fill out the CSS profile. If you have any questions, you can always contact College Board. They have, you can make the account now, I believe. You can look at the list of schools, contact them if you have any questions. But that is the way CSS profile operates. Then we have the FAFSA. So now we're going to be talking a lot in depth about this application. Again, it comes out December 1st, and with this application, they collect the students, the families' personal and financial information to calculate what's called a Student Aid Index, an SAI. And this SAI that you get after filling out the FAFSA will determine how much financial aid you are eligible for. The FAFSA is available on studentaid.gov. The application is not available yet, but you can go on the website and create an account now, which we recommend. You can create the account ahead of time so that when the FAFSA does come out in December, you already have it, you've already been verified, you can go right in and complete it. Similar, they use 2023 tax information for this academic year. And with the FAFSA, very, very important, contributors must provide consent to the IRS. So a student is a contributor, parents are contributors, so parents also need to create an account. When you're filling out the FAFSA, you need to give permission so that the IRS can obtain your federal tax information and send it over to the FAFSA and to the schools that a student is applying to. This is super important. Every single person needs to provide consent to this process. This is what it was like before as well, but now it's a easier process because all you have to do is just say, yes, I give permission, and they kind of handle it from there. Every single person needs to give permission. The IRS knows everything anyways. So if you say no, a student will not be eligible. Every single person, even the student, if they had no income, if a parent didn't file taxes, you will provide consent, and then the IRS will just confirm what they already know. With the Federal Student Aid ID, this is a fancy name for your username and password. So again, the student will create an FSA ID, and the parent, the contributor, will also need an FSA ID. Again, you can create it now. We recommend you create it now. And when you're creating this account, you will need your social because they do need to confirm your identity so that you can have access to the account. The student, later when they do the FAFSA, they're going to identify who their information contributor is. Contributor is like another name for parent. They changed it up because not everyone who helps a student out with the FAFSA is a parent, and they understand that. So information contributors will need access so that they can fill out a FAFSA. A FAFSA is not complete until the student and the parent or contributor do their part. Everyone needs to go on the FAFSA. Everyone needs to fill out their part and sign before it is officially processed and sent over to the schools. Student obviously needs the account, but again, contributors, it can depend. Everyone has different situations. Sometimes one parent is required, sometimes two parents are required. So who needs an FSA ID? If the parents filed taxes together, if you file jointly, only one parent is needed, only that one parent needs an account, and you're good to go. I mean, for example, when I was in college, my parents are married, they file taxes together. I chose my mom because my mom checks her email more often than my dad. And so she created the account. My dad never had to worry, never had to make an account because since they file taxes together, their information is together. They only need one person. But in the case that parents file taxes separately, in that case, both parents are contributors. Both parents need an account. Both of them will be invited to fill out their portions of the FAFSA, and the FAFSA will not be complete until they both do their part. Because even though they file taxes separately, we need to take into account total income of the household. So that is the reason why they both will need to do it. If the biological parents, again, it's always biological, are divorced or separated, student gets to decide who it provided me the most financial support in the last 12 months. The parent that provided the most financial support in the last 12 months will be the one to provide information. And if parents are married or unmarried living together but did not file, again, everyone needs their ID. Undocumented parents also need an FSA ID. So if you have a social, you can create the account. But when you do not have a social, it's a bit of a different process. If you're undocumented, this is a new process. Undocumented parents are able to have an account. In the past, because you need a social, it wasn't possible, but this is one of the changes that they made. It had a lot of glitches last year. So this year we're hoping that they fix it and it's a lot easier. But when you are undocumented and you need to provide information for a student, you will make the FSA ID, but you need to verify your identity a little bit differently. When an undocumented parent creates an account, they will be asked knowledge-based verification questions. With these questions, again, it could be things like which one of these phone numbers was yours previously? Where did you live previously? And if you answer correctly, they verify your identity and you're good to go. Sometimes this process does not work or doesn't load. And so if a parent is not presented with the knowledge-based questions, then they will need to send in a copy of their driver's license, of their passport, something to verify their identity. They mail it over, FSA verifies, and then they have access to the account. So again, undocumented parents do need an account, but it's a little bit different. And once they have the account, they're able to go in and help the student with the FAFSA. Federal tax information. So again, your FTI is needed in order to fill out the FAFSA. A lot of acronyms. When you do the FAFSA, every single party needs to provide consent. If parents are married or unmarried, live together, did not file together, then both of them need to provide consent. If one provides consent, that is not enough. Every single party, every single contributor on the FAFSA needs to go in and provide their consent so that the FAFSA can be done completely.
And I just wanted to clarify that because earlier you had said if a parent made more money and they were divorced, that one could only needed one ID, but that's not the same as the consent process, right?
So when you identify which parent needs the account, they will need to provide consent. So in that case, when a student's parents are separated, you decide, okay, my parents are separated, they're divorced. Which of my two parents provides me the most financial support because they're not together anymore? When they decide which parent provides the most financial support, only that one parent will need to create an account, will be invited, and will need to provide consent. They do not consider the other parent because they are not providing the most financial support. When they're divorced, separated, it's only one, but they do have ways of verifying if parents are actually separated. So it's important to answer that question honestly, because they will verify if not. But if only one parent is needed, only that one parent needs to provide consent. It depends on who's being invited.
Thank you.
Mhm. So information contributors, again, need to provide consent. This is what it looks like. It's just letting you know, hey, you provide consent, you give permission, you scroll to the bottom, you say, yes, everything looks good, I provide consent, and you continue on with the process. And this is a lot easier compared to how it was in the past, because in the past, when you were trying to transfer over your tax information, you either had to log on to the IRS website separately and like put in your information, and it looked kind of gimmicky because it led you to another site and it was kind of confusing. If that didn't work, for example, when I was in college, it never let me do that. Every time I logged into the IRS website, it didn't go through. It didn't let me do it. So what I had to do every single year, and what a lot of families had to do, is have their actual tax returns with them and go line by line, putting down all the information from the taxes, which can be confusing, which can be done wrong a lot of the time if you're not aware. So they have gotten rid of that process through this. By providing consent, all you have to do is just say, yeah, sure, go ahead. And you don't really necessarily need your tax return with you. It's important to have that information just in case, but for the most part, it is an automatic process now. So this is one of the greater updates that they have made to the FAFSA. Key requirements for the FAFSA, again, student must have a valid social security number. If the student does not have a social security number, if they are not a resident, if they don't have a green card, they would need to do the New Jersey alternative application. They must be enrolled or accepted for enrollment at an eligible program of study. Students can add up to 20 schools on the FAFSA. It doesn't even have to be schools that they are applying to actively. So, for example, I am out of college, I'm done. But when the FAFSA came out last year, I was curious. So I filled out the FAFSA as a student, even though I did not send in any application to any college. You can do that. You can fill out the FAFSA and not even think about college, because when you fill it out, there's no repercussions if you actually decide not to go to college. It's a free application. You're just putting your information out there. I added like all the Ivy Leagues, Harvard, Yale, whatever, even though I'm not applying to any of them. I already have a degree, but you can do that. There's no repercussions. So as long as you're just filling it out, putting information, you are good to go. You can add 20 schools and never even apply to one of them. It is fine. The student must be going towards a degree, certificate, citizen or eligible non-citizen. And again, if you're undocumented, you would go to our HESA website instead of FAFSA. Similar, what's needed for the student, what's needed for the parent. Full name, your address, social, ITIN, date of birth, phone numbers, emails. They will usually send you a verification text or email as well. So when you're creating your accounts, it's good to be with the student. If a student is sometimes doing this on their own, they're probably going to call you and be like, hey, can you give me your social? Can you give me your information? And when it comes to FAFSA, that is like the one instance where you should be like, okay, I'll give you my information, I'll give you my social. Because again, it's a federal application. They're verifying this information. So important to be aware of this. This is normal. They will ask for your consent and for your asset information. And another important thing we have down at the bottom for the student is student personal circumstances. With this section of the FAFSA, they are going to determine if a student is dependent or independent. I know sometimes we like to think students are independent once they graduate, once they're out of high school, but for the most part, a student does not fully turn independent until they turn 24 years old. If you are under 24 years old, you are almost always considered a dependent, and only in certain circumstances, certain personal circumstances, can you be truly considered independent. These are things like if you're in the military, if a student has dependents of their own, if a student is an orphan, if parents have passed away, if they have been in situations of abuse or neglect and they are documented, in those circumstances only, and there's not many, can you be considered an independent student. If a student does not meet that criteria, they are going to be dependent and they need to invite a parent contributor to the FAFSA. So this is very, very important to keep in mind. With parents, the student gets to determine if they will determine through the questions if they're dependent or independent. And once the FAFSA tells them, hey, you're dependent, that's when parents get invited through email. And then you will provide similar information. They will ask you if you're receiving any federal help, any of the programs like Medicaid, WIC, SNAP, and they'll ask for this additional information when you go into your portion of the FAFSA. This is what it looks like when we are done with the FAFSA. So I don't think it's too bad. It's honestly the hardest part is creating the account. A lot of people struggle with that because then they create the account and they forget their password and then not able to enter. So really important when you're creating the account, you put down information that you're going to remember, an email that you're always going to have access to, a password that you're going to remember, because this is something that students need to fill out every single year that they go to college. Once it comes out, you'll fill it out, not too bad, and then you're good to go. So after you do the FAFSA, you get the FAFSA submission summary, and it lets you know when it's been received, when it's been processed. It gives you a data release number in case a college is asking, hey, we didn't receive your FAFSA. You can provide the number and they'll be able to look it up. But that is really it. After a student does the FAFSA, they will be instructed to go onto njfams.hisa.org to create an account. And so that really is like number one, part two. After you do the FAFSA, you want to create an account with the state so you can be considered for additional financial aid. Before I move on to that, taking another little break here, I'm going to look at the chat, see if there's any questions. And if you think of anything, please let me know before we go on to next steps after the FAFSA. Are there separate FAFSA accounts for student and parents? Yes. So every single person has their own account that they're going to use. So student with their social creates their account that they're going to have access to, and parent with their social has their own account as well. If you want the student to handle everything and they can handle your account for you, if you give them consent, you can go ahead, but really everyone should have their own information to themselves. You're going to be invited later on, so good to have the account ahead of time. With the FAFSA account too, very important. When you create this account, you really only have one chance at it because you're putting your social. A lot of times, maybe a parent had an account back in the day, maybe recently they went to school, they have that account for themselves. Because that account is already in existence with your social security number, when you are doing your portion for a student, if you already have an account, you will actually be using that exact same account to help the student out because your identity, your social has been verified already. So again, if you forget that information, if you have an account but you don't remember, or you create an account recently, you don't remember, you want to just simply make a new one, they're not going to let you because when you go in and you put in that social, if it has already been used, they will tell you, hey, already in existence, figure it out, change your password, change your username because somebody already has this account. So very important to remember that information. Sometimes you have to call to let them know, like, hey, I don't have access to that account anymore. Can you change it for me? And federal student aid can help you out. But again, having the account is very, very important. Do I have to do the FAFSA before I submit my application on Common App? You don't have to. It's really up to you. So a lot of students do Common App and then they do FAFSA. But if you do FAFSA before Common App, again, it doesn't matter. A school will receive that application, but they won't do anything with it until the student is accepted. So if I apply to Ramapo College of New Jersey. And I do my FAFSA first, and I send in that FAFSA to Ramapo College, and I apply to Ramapo College, and they do not accept my application. Nothing's going to happen. They're never going to do anything with that FAFSA information. It kind of just dies out in their system. But if I do get accepted to Ramapo College, they will look me up. They'll see that they have a FAFSA on my like on their end with my information, and then they'll begin to process me for financial aid. So whatever order you do it in doesn't really matter. But you do want to keep in mind deadlines. So if on the Common App they're saying, hey, this school you're applying to recommends that you do the FAFSA before this date for priority deadlines, you want to make sure you do it before that deadline because the sooner you do it, the sooner a student gets accepted, they can look up the FAFSA and they'll let them know if they're eligible for scholarship. So I say the sooner the better, but again, completely depends on the student, their application deadlines. How are the parent and student accounts connected? So when a student does their portion of the FAFSA, you have the option. I always recommend student completes FAFSA first, but if a parent wanted to go in first, they can do it that way. If a student does it first, a student, when they're answering the dependent questions, it'll let them know, hey, based on the way you responded, you are dependent. Please invite your parent. So when they're inviting the parent, they'll put your information, they'll put your social, and then through that social is how it's going to connect with your account. It'll link the social up, you'll get the invitation on your account, and then you'll go in and you will complete your portion of the FAFSA. If you wanted to start the FAFSA as a parent, very, very similar. You'll put your information, you'll put down the information that for the student that you are inviting, and then the student will get a notification on their portal. So everything is done separately. You get different notifications when you log in, and the invitation will be there. It's up to you how you want to do it, but again, I think the best way is with the student completing their portion first, and then you get invited later on. If parents are divorced and one parent contributes the most, but both parents support the child, can both parents be added to the FAFSA or it can only be one? If parents are divorced, separated, it can only be one parent. And again, the wording of the question is important and it's done that way for a reason. So the wording of the question is, who has provided the most financial support to the student in the last 12 months? Again, you can choose. Mom provided the most support, dad provided the most support. But if parents go ahead and say, you know what, we support the child completely equally, we both provide the same amount of financial support to the child. In that case, federal guidelines say that you will then need to provide information for the parent who makes the most money. So again, wording is important. They're kind of giving you the opportunity to choose who you want to use. If you believe, hey, this parent provides most financial support, even though they make less, you've made that decision. You can invite that parent. But if you go ahead and answer, hey, it's equal, you will be forced to use the parent with the higher income. So answer as you please. That's what the federal government says. But again, up to you guys when you are presented with that question on the FAFSA. Again, you answer yes, you answer no, you identify the parent, and you go from there. So answer honestly, but also depends on your situation. Next question, can you make corrections to the FAFSA application once it is submitted? You can. So I'm saying do everything carefully, make sure that you do everything correctly the first time, but you can make corrections. It is not the end of the world if you make a mistake. This past year, for example, very, very common to make a mistake. A lot of students did the FAFSA wrong. Believe me, I'm the one that had to help them correct it. It is fine. It is not the end of the world. You will go back in a couple days after you submit it. You have the opportunity to make a correction and the school will receive that updated correction. And if you are really concerned, you can again always call the Office of Financial Aid and they'll let you know if they have received the more recent version of the FAFSA for the student. So you can make corrections. Try to do it right the first time, but again, not the end of the world. They will receive it and they will update. Just be aware of that. And I always recommend calling them just to make sure because you never know. Any other questions? Alrighty then, we are nearing the end. Okay, so what happens next? So after you do the FAFSA, you're good to go. I have a little calendar in a little bit that explains like what happens after you do the FAFSA. But we also have verification that can occur. So when you do the FAFSA, again, this is information based on the family's financial history, financial information. But sometimes maybe something is done incorrectly. Maybe something went wrong. Maybe we need to verify information from the student and from the family. This process is called verification. So the school is responsible for verifying information for federal financial aid. So if you want to receive the Pell Grant, if you want to receive student loans, they may not let you receive that financial aid until you are done with the verification process. With verification, sometimes you have to send in your tax return transcript. Maybe you have to verify how many people there are in the household. Once the school verifies that, then you can get your federal financial aid. HESA, we are responsible for verifying for state aid. So if you are interested in getting EOF, the TAG grant, the Community College Opportunity Grant, we will withhold that aid until we verify information from you. Not everyone is selected for verification. It's not as common, especially now, that it's an automatic process because we are getting information directly from the IRS. Verification is not going to be as common anymore. But if a student is selected for verification, you want to make sure you are submitting those documents to the school or to HESA. This will always usually be communicated through email or mail, not as common, but email is the most common. Always check the student's school account or NJFAM's state account for more information if they need to submit documents. And as long as you're doing everything by the deadlines, the student will be good to go and they will receive their financial aid. But verification is good to be aware of it in case you are selected in the future. For our New Jersey Dreamers, again, instead of doing FAFSA, you will complete the alternative application on the HESA site. So with NJFAMs, undocumented students, that's where they apply. But also any New Jersey student, NJFAMs is the site where you can view all your state financial aid information. So NJFAMs is important regardless. If you want to go to NJFAMS, it's short for New Jersey Financial Aid Management System. You go to the HESA website, you go to login in the corner, and then NJFAMS, you go in there and you make your account. So again, really great for any New Jersey student. We recommend doing this after you complete the FAFSA, but some students go by in college without ever making an account. Very important for our undocumented students, exactly there is where they will apply. But if you are not undocumented, if a student is eligible for the FAFSA, they won't touch it, but this is still a web page that they can utilize. So they can check their to-do list, they can check their award and eligibility information, they can view their school information, everything will be on there. Now back to cost of attendance, and we'll explain the SAI as well. So when a student is attending college, there are several things that they need to consider in their cost of attendance, how much it costs to go to that school. We have direct costs and we have indirect costs. The most common direct costs for students are tuition and fees and food and housing if a student chooses to live on campus. With direct costs, these are things that you will be directly billed for. So the cost of the school, if a student wants to live there, that will be included in the direct cost. These are things that you will be billed for that your financial aid will cover. We also have indirect costs. An indirect cost, they may be included in a cost of attendance, but these could be things that you are not directly billed for. So, food and supplies, equipment, transportation, miscellaneous expenses. When you are receiving your financial aid letters, you may see these things and they might give you a high number. It might say, hey, books and supplies are going to be about $1,000. But again, that depends on the student because that's an indirect cost. So with indirect, the amount of it can always change. What we really want to focus on is tuition and fees and food and housing. We have other costs such as medical insurance that could be indirect if you already have your own insurance. In New Jersey, if a student does not have medical insurance, the school can give them the option of adding that and they can have that as a cost on their cost of attendance. You may have federal loan fees. Again, it depends on the student. If a student is studying abroad, if they have a dependent and they have care expenses, all these things depend on the student. But again, the most common one that you will be billed for is tuition and fees and food and housing. What is the Student Aid Index or the SAI? With the prior FAFSA, this was known as the EFC, the Expected Family Contribution. What I tell a lot of students and family is really the SAI is none of your business. You don't need to understand what the SAI is. If you want to, that's fine. But for the most part, it doesn't affect, you can't change it and it doesn't really impact how much you can't really change the amount of the SAI. It's an automatic number that is determined based on information from the FAFSA. So after I do the FAFSA, it could say I have an SAI of negative 1,500. That's what they determined. I cannot change it. It is based on providing consent, everything I gave to them. They gave me the SAI. I can't change it. So really, it's none of my business. I don't really need to know about it. But it's very, very important for financial aid offices. So HESA, when we receive your SAI, we are going to know exactly how much financial aid you're going to get. Since a student has an SAI of negative 1,500, we know, okay, they're eligible for the full amount of state financial aid, and we're going to give them the full amount of financial aid. A lower SAI usually means you're going to get more financial aid. A higher SAI usually means you're going to get less financial aid because you have less need. So SAI depends on the family, automatically given to you based on information from the FAFSA. You cannot change it. And this is determined by guidelines used by schools to determine student aid offers. It's a federal formula they come up with that automatically determines the SAI. So again, don't worry too much about it, but that's what it is. To confuse you guys even more, here we have examples of how SAIs are determined. We have the Smith family and we have the Jones family. The Smith family, parents are married and they file jointly. The family size is 4, and they earn a total of $94,000 per year. They have 0 assets and student earns little, $50 in income, $213 in assets. They have an SAI of 8,667. Again, what is that number? It doesn't mean you're getting 8,000, doesn't mean you're paying 8,000. It's more of an index. It's an indicator for financial aid offices. So it doesn't mean much to the average student or parent, but when we see that number, we can calculate how much we're going to give you. So with that SAI, they are considered ineligible for the federal Pell Grant. They are not going to be getting the Pell Grant. With the Jones family, almost everything is similar. Parents married, filed joint, same income, same assets for the parents and for the student. But this is a family of 6. So a change like that, increasing how many people there are in the family, because it is a family of 6, they have a lower SAI. Their SAI is 3,764. And with this SAI, the federal government determines that they are eligible for $3,631 in the federal Pell Grant for their academic year. Again, confusing, but it's okay. It's automatic. When you do the FAFSA, the SAI is given to you automatically, and they will tell you exactly how much you're going to get on the FAFSA website when you finish. So the SAI plugs it in, and they'll tell you what you're going to be eligible for. What is SAI based on? Tax and parent assets? Yes. So when you provide consent to the IRS, they send that information over. They see your tax information. If your assets are on your taxes, they'll see that as well. There's also a question on the FAFSA where they're going to ask for asset information. That is how the SAI is determined. Here we have financial need for the Smith family. So here we can see the cost of attendance for different schools. Obviously, the cost of attendance for a community college is going to be way less compared to a private college or university. Cost of attendance at community college, 8,000, at a state college, 30,000, and at a private college, 60,000 for the year. These are things that they may be directly billed for. The SAI that you get, the amount that you're eligible for, stays the same at every school. So if I am ineligible for the Pell Grant at community college, I will still be ineligible for the Pell Grant at a four-year school. However, that doesn't take into account your other financial aid. So if I am getting a scholarship from community college, that could help me pay for the total price. So maybe the student is getting a full ride. In this case, $1,000. Maybe community college costs $1,000. They have a zero unmet financial need. Community college will be free for them because they have other forms of financial aid. At the state college university, maybe they're also getting some financial aid, drops it down, they're paying $20,000. And then for the private college university, with the other forms of financial aid that they have, $50,000 a year. Price varies, but the amount of financial aid that you're going to get will relatively stay about the same unless you're getting a scholarship directly from the college or university. Here we have a nice little calendar, the cycle of financial aid. So this is what it's going to look like the next couple of months when a student is a senior in high school. From December to March is when they are completing all of their applications. Here we have first complete the FAFSA, but also finishing up the college search, finishing up those college applications, finishing up the CSS profile. Really from now until March is when students will be going through that process. Around February to May is when students begin to find out what schools have accepted them. And once they know what school has accepted them, about a month after is when schools will send their financial aid offers. So after a student gets accepted, you really want to be on the lookout for this offer of financial aid because that will really be the key in helping you determine which school is going to be more affordable. May 1st is decision day, so hopefully by May 1st, you will have received those financial aid offers, you will have compared. By May 1st, the student will have their decision. This year, May 1st was not really decision day because of the delay of the FAFSA. With this delay, it does affect timelines. So again, traditionally February to May is when students get financial aid offers. But this academic year, because of how horrible it was truly with the FAFSA, be glad that you weren't a part of the graduating class last year. A lot of things got pushed back. So May 1st really wasn't decision day. A lot of students around that time were just starting to get their financial aid offer. Around June 1st, really, is when a lot of students finally decided on what school they wanted to go to. With the delay this year, we're hoping it's a lot better. I think a lot of colleges are more prepared for this. So hopefully by May 1st this year, you'll know. From June to July is when schools begin to send out their fall semester bills. So you'll finally get to see what you are being directly billed for when the student attends in the fall. And usually by August is when bills are due. It is time to make your first payment to the college if you have a balance. So by then you will know if you're taking out loans, if you're going to go on a payment plan. By August you pay, and then usually by the end of the month, beginning of September, is when a student begins their college journey. Where do we go from here? So again, obtain and review admission, financial aid materials, and deadlines from each school. Look up the schools that the students are interested in. See if they have any specific financial aid deadlines, anything additional that they have to submit. Really important, of course, to apply to the school, but you want to consider these financial aid deadlines as well because you want to go where the money is. Meet all application deadlines, so CSS profile, FAFSA, if they have a FAFSA deadline, make sure you submit that on time. A student in their first year, if they want to go to school in New Jersey, they have until September 15th of the following year to submit the FAFSA. So for example, September 15th was not that long ago. I have students that I helped in the beginning of September fill out their FAFSA because they decided late August that they want to start school this semester. So if a student realistically wanted to wait until next year to fill out the FAFSA, they can do it and still get full financial aid. Do we recommend that? No. A student should fill out the FAFSA as soon as they can, especially with the new law that we have in place. But a student can wait until September 15th to fill it out. Every year after that, a student has until April 15th to fill out the FAFSA to be considered for state aid every single year. So in their first year, there's a lot of time. You can be a little bit lenient. Every year after that, your deadline moves up, and you want to make sure you complete by April 15th to be eligible for state financial aid. We have deadlines for state financial aid. When it comes to federal financial aid, there is no real deadline. But again, you want to do it earlier so you can be considered for school scholarships, so the school can get it ahead of time. Waiting that long can be negative. So the sooner, the better. Here we have the financial aid award letter. So in New Jersey, it is the law for every single college to send a financial aid award letter to students. So if a school does not send you this after a student gets accepted, they are technically breaking the law. So with this financial aid shopping sheet, we give estimates to students on how much it's going to cost to go to that school. So every school is responsible for sending this out. And again, it helps families with net cost transparency. With this letter, you will see exactly how much you're going to pay to go to that school. So that's why, again, super important you're receiving this information. I remember when I was in high school, I called to make sure I was getting this letter from every single school I applied to because I wanted to know exactly how much I was going to pay, and I wanted to choose a school that was cheapest for me. Again, it tells you everything. I'm going to zoom in. It tells you the direct costs, so tuition and fees, if a student chooses to live on campus, how much it is for food and housing, total of direct costs, indirect expenses. So again, this can be an estimate. They'll give you an estimate for books and supplies, transportation, but really we want to look at the direct costs. After that, they'll tell you what scholarships you're going to get. So if the school gave you a presidential scholarship, that will be listed there. If you have state financial aid, it'll say what state financial aid you're getting, other scholarships you may be getting. Your need-based grant aid. So again, if you're getting federal financial aid, even if you're getting loans, it'll give you that estimate there. And then at the bottom, it will tell you what the total cost is going to be with all of the financial aid taken into account. This thing literally will do the math for you. So again, you want to make sure you are getting this from every single school the student has been accepted into. Other resources. So we want to look for outside scholarships, of course. So do the FAFSA, do the CSS profile, but the search for outside scholarships should be never ending. Look into if a campus has a payment plan. That will help a lot to offset costs if you are going to a school that's a little bit more expensive. Look for campus employment. So if the student is eligible for federal work study, they can definitely find an on-campus job. Usually on-campus jobs are very, very flexible to their student schedule. So really great to look into that. And other opportunities to help students save a little bit of more money. Residential advisors, they can be that and usually get free housing. They can be a student ambassador, a tour guide. Maybe if they find an internship or co-op at the school, that can help them offset costs as well. We have HISA.org, FAFSA.org, collegeboard.org, mappingyourfuture.org, opportunities to look for scholarships. Look at your local library, see if they have any scholarship information. Local businesses, civic organizations, churches, they can have private scholarship opportunities. So the search should be never ending. Here we have another option that we have for students, maybe too late for students that are graduating this year, but New Jersey has a 529 college savings plan that we offer to students called NJ Best. With NJ Best, we give scholarships to students who have had accounts open for at least 4 years. So the longer you have an account open, the more you can get back in a scholarship. And if you are opening an account for the first time, if you put in $750, the state will match that $750. So then you'll have a total of $1,500 saved in the bank account for a student to go to college. So really great to take advantage of if you have any other members of your family that you want to start saving for. It's a good opportunity to plan ahead. HESA has a lot of webinars for students. So if you are having trouble filling out the FAFSA, if you want assistance with creating the FSA ID, we have walkthroughs. Like we'll show you what it looks like. We'll help you with the process. You can have it open at the same time that we're going over it. So you can feel free to go to our webinars. We have them in English and in Spanish. We have a lot coming up. We came up with our calendar very recently because we know that it's coming out soon. So any one of those dates you can hop on and we'll walk you through it. We have publications. So if you have specific questions about any one of the programs that I mentioned, like College Promise, Tag, we have that information on our website, as long as general graphics about like how to make the ID, what is the FAFSA, a little financial aid dictionary. And that is it for the presentation. So if you ever want to contact customer care, we have our customer care center. They are available for you if you have any questions, if you need a little bit of guidance. And we also have our website. So again, HESA.org, njgrants.org, NJFAMS for our state website for students if they want to open their account, see what state financial aid they're getting. It's a really good resource. So thank you for tuning in today. I know it was a lot of information. So if there are any questions, I will take them and I'm happy to assist.
Thank you so much, Jessica. If you could actually put it back to the previous slide while we take questions, that way people can write down the information for the center.
Yes, of course. If schools require a deposit, yes, you usually have to send in a deposit. When you accept your offer, you won't be considered a student usually until you fully pay that deposit. Sometimes you can waive it, very rare, but sometimes you can like talk to a school and waive the deposit fee. But usually that's how they secure their funds for the year. Deposits help them gauge how many students are going to be attending. So usually have to send a deposit. And then the deadline to receive this form. Which form was it? Oh, the financial aid award letter, there is no deadline. But by law, New Jersey schools have to send it out. So if you haven't received it, just call up the school, call up financial aid, and they'll be able to send that over. Sometimes students don't receive it because maybe there was an error. So maybe you submitted the FAFSA, but the school didn't get it on their end. Again, that's why it's good to call the Office of Financial Aid, reach out, because then they can easily fix that for you. So definitely good to have a good relationship with them so they can check on that. But that form's super important. I remember there was schools that never sent me the form, so I never considered it. And then when I called and asked, I was like, wait, like this is a really, really good school. They're giving me a lot of financial aid, but I wouldn't have known that if they didn't send me this letter. So that's a really important thing to look out for after a student gets accepted. Would I share this presentation? Yes, of course. So I'll put my email here, and if you want me to send it to you, I will gladly send it to you. I have a PDF version of it.
Thank you so much. This was really, really informative. I know it was a lot of information, and I'm
Yeah.
so glad that she is able to share the presentation so you can take a look at it. We did record. I'm actually going to turn off the recording now.